it's become a sneaky backdoor trend to skirt New Jersey laws. More single family homes are being purchased not by individuals, but by LLCs, right? Limited liability companies or corporations, making it harder to enforce housing safety and rental laws because you're not dealing with a private individual owner. Assemblyman Alex Sawicki of New Jersey's 12th legislative district sponsored a bill that would require greater transparency when LLCs purchase residential properties intended for rental use. For more on this, we say good morning to the Assemblyman. How are you, sir?
Hey, good morning, Ken. Good to see you again.
Good to have you on. Well, this is something that transcends party. This is something, right? Whether you're Democrat or Republican, there are rules that we're all supposed to be following. And it's clear that there's the spirit of the law and the actual law. And it feels like they know what the law is and they are skirting it. So when did this start? Did somebody just transfer ownership of a property on paper to an LLC and start skirting state laws? Is this how it all began?
Well, it's a problem that's gotten bigger over time. And to be clear, while this bill is being well received in two of my counties, Ocean and Monmouth, out of the four counties I represent, it's a statewide issue. To give you an
Mhm.
idea, back in the early 90s, less than 10% of residential homes were owned by LLCs. That number is now approaching 30%. So to put it in perspective, if you're living in a municipality that has 10,000 homes, as an example, in the 90s, maybe 900 of them were owned by LLCs. Now 3,000 of them are. So it's a big number. That's a size shift.
I know some people in the real estate business, and I heard about this maybe a year ago, where they were talking about people forming LLCs in order to get mortgages. There are certain mortgage companies that will lend to an LLC because it's different credit structure, et cetera, et cetera. And then what people are doing is they invest in a house as an LLC, they fix it up, they borrow against, they buy another house, they try to do flipping, but it's like almost like a house of cards. It feels kind of dangerous. And I've heard whenever I hear something like that, it's always one of the rules of if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Now, your bill A1233 focuses on transparency during the deed recording process. So, how would that change the way towns handle these LLC-owned properties?
Well, the biggest issue is that with LLCs, you don't know who to call when the law's broken. So you have municipalities that have laws on the books. Those laws need to be followed. They're seeing blatant disregard for those laws. And when it comes time to try to enforce them, they don't know who to call. So this bill really does nothing more than simply says, hey, we need to know who the individual is that was the registered agent. If the registered agent isn't part of the LLC, they need to append to the deed a name of somebody who is involved in the LLC. And ultimately, they have somebody who can be contacted. Now, you mentioned earlier, this has received bipartisan support. It's not one party versus another. It's completely supported by both parties. And it's recognized as an issue statewide to the point that it's just common sense that we would have this on the books. So those that are blatantly disregarding the laws, who are the only ones that are going to have a problem with this bill and ultimately this law, uh, need to be held responsible for breaking the law.
Yeah, Assemblyman, just another game that people who use the LLC concept have been playing. I live half in New Jersey and half in Fort Lauderdale. I've never made a secret of that. And I live in a building that is residential only in Fort Lauderdale,
Mhm.
not supposed to rent out your unit. Well, a couple of people in the last couple of years bought their units as LLCs. Now, you
Mhm.
don't know who's living in the unit, right? So they could be renting it out because again, an LLC isn't a person, it's an entity. So now they're what we find out is they're renting their unit out as an LLC, and the person is temporarily on the board of the LLC, and they get to use the unit. These are the sneaky ways people are using this and taking advantage, and there's the lack of transparency. So now my building is voting to eliminate any future ownership of, by LLC as a result. But these are these little things that if you're not paying attention, it could be snuck in, right? So you have now some LLC owned homes being illegally converted into multifamily rentals. So how does that
Yeah.
impact a community?
Yeah, spot on. And that's one of the biggest issues of all this. And I think a lot of residents don't even recognize the compounding effect of this. The breaking of the law includes renting out a single family home to as many as four families. We
Wow.
know for sure that's happening. Now, this becomes a safety as well as a quality of life issue. You know, people that live in a residential development don't expect four different families to be living in the house next door to them. Secondarily, those four families, first off, it's a safety issue and a fire issue, which has been cited in my own town a few times. But it also impacts the school systems. You know, if those four families have children, those children now go to the public school. The public school is only receiving property tax on a single family home, but they're now supporting four families' children. And you're seeing this with things like an increase in multi-language learners in every school district in the state. Those are up over 300% in most municipalities, and that's, you know, a compounding effect of breaking the rental laws. And, you know, again, municipalities have laws on the books that says you can't rent out a single family home to four different families. You know, it's just a violation of the local laws. And the problem is those municipalities, as much as they may want to enforce that, don't know who to call.
Yeah. I mean, people forget that now each of those families may have one or two cars. They're going to jam the
Mhm.
streets. The streets
Yep,
are not made for that in these little local residential areas. And people forget little things like electricity and plumbing. You know, if a house is only, if you have a house for two or three people and you have, they calculate, right? How many flushes in a building. That's how they
that's right.
calculate how many people live in a building. The pipes are a certain size. All of a sudden, you add 50, 60, 70 more people. That's a lot more flushes. I know it sounds like we're kidding, but this is the truth. That's how they calculate it based on the flushes. Now you're really overburdening a system never meant for that number of people. This is where this becomes a very, very big issue. What do you say to those who fear the bill could discourage the responsible investors?
Well, listen, I'll be transparent. I've owned rental property before. It's,
Hmm.
you know, I understand it. I understand the need for it and why people do it. Those that follow the law will have absolutely no issue with this bill. Certainly, as a former owner of rental property, if this bill came up while I was owning property, I certainly wouldn't worry about it because I follow the local laws. So
Right.
as long as you understand what the local laws are and you follow them, and some of them, frankly, are common sense. You know, renting out a single family home to four families, you know you're kind of doing the wrong thing there. So let's not kid ourselves. You know, so
Clearly,
if
clearly.
you
I,
know if you're
I didn't
if
mean to
you're
step on.
responsible,
I didn't mean to step on you, Assemblyman. We're out of time. We're up against a break here. Please come back and let us know how this goes. All right. We want to know if it passes. Assemblyman
sure
Alex
thing.
Sawicki of New Jersey's 12th Legislative District. We appreciate you for coming on this morning. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ken. Good seeing you.
You bet.